If you are married to a U.S. citizen or permanent resident and you have a marriage-based green card application pending, or you already hold a marriage green card, what you are about to hear is something you cannot afford to ignore. Marriage green cards are now under review in a way they have not been before, and USCIS has made it clear that new rules and new standards are being applied. Many couples still believe that if their marriage is real, they have nothing to worry about. That belief is understandable, but under the current system, it can also be dangerously incomplete. Over the past several months, USCIS has quietly shifted how marriage-based cases are examined. There has been no single headline announcement, no dramatic policy memo released to the public, but the change is happening in practice every day, inside interviews, requests for evidence, and case reviews. Officers are being instructed to look deeper, ask more detailed questions, and scrutinize patterns that were once overlooked. Couples who filed years ago under one set of expectations are now being evaluated under a very different mindset. For a long time, marriage green cards were seen as one of the more straightforward paths in the immigration system. If you could prove a bona fide marriage, submit joint documents, and pass the interview, approval usually followed. That sense of predictability is fading. USCIS is no longer satisfied with surface-level proof alone. They are focusing on behavior, timelines, consistency, and intent in ways that surprise many applicants. This is especially concerning because many couples are relying on outdated advice. They are following checklists they found online, stories from friends who applied years ago, or assumptions based on what used to work. Meanwhile, USCIS has adjusted its internal guidance to reflect heightened fraud prevention priorities. That does not mean every case is treated as fraudulent, but it does mean every case is treated as something that must be proven more thoroughly than before. One of the most important things to understand is that these new review standards apply broadly. They affect couples filing from inside the United States through adjustment of status, couples going through consular processing, conditional green card holders removing conditions, and even some permanent residents renewing status or applying for citizenship later. Marriage-based immigration is being looked at as an ongoing evaluation, not a one-time decision. USCIS has emphasized that marriage must be more than legally valid. It must appear genuine in daily life. Officers are trained to assess whether a couple is truly building a life together, not just sharing documents. This includes how finances are managed, how living arrangements are structured, how families are involved, and how consistent the couple's story remains over time. Small inconsistencies that once passed unnoticed can now trigger deeper questioning. Another major shift is the increased use of cross-checking. Information provided in a marriage green card application is no longer evaluated in isolation. It is compared against prior visa applications, travel history, employment records, tax filings, and even previous addresses. If something does not align, officers are more likely to pause the case and ask questions. This can result in delays, requests for evidence, or in some cases, denial or referral for further review. Interviews are also changing. Many couples report that interviews are longer and more detailed than expected. Officers may separate spouses more frequently. Questions may go beyond how the couple met or when they married, and focus instead on daily routines, financial decisions, future plans, and past timelines. The goal is to test consistency and credibility, not just memory. What makes this situation especially stressful is that genuine couples can still struggle under these conditions. Nervousness, misunderstandings, cultural differences, or simple memory gaps can create answers that sound inconsistent even when the marriage is real. Under stricter review standards, those moments matter more than they used to. This is why preparation has become critical, not optional. Conditional green card holders face even greater scrutiny. When it comes time to remove conditions, USCIS is reviewing not only current evidence, but the entire history of the marriage. Any gaps, separations, or unusual circumstances may be examined closely. Couples who assumed approval was routine are discovering that the process now requires far more detailed documentation and explanation. Another important factor driving these changes is timing. USCIS is under pressure to process cases more efficiently while also increasing enforcement. That combination leads to a system where decisions are made faster, but with higher expectations for clarity and completeness. When cases move quickly, there is less opportunity to correct mistakes or clarify misunderstandings after the fact. This shift has created a sharp contrast in outcomes. Well-prepared couples with consistent documentation and a clear shared life are moving through the system more smoothly than before. Couples who relied on minimal evidence or assumed the officer would fill in the gaps are facing delays and problems. The difference is no longer luck, it is preparation. Throughout this video, we are going to break down what these new marriage green card review standards really mean, who is most at risk under the current approach, and what you should be doing right now to protect your case. This is not about fear. It is about awareness. USCIS is changing how marriage green cards are reviewed, whether people are ready for it or not. If you are married, applying, or planning to apply, now is the time to understand these rules before they affect you directly. Because once your case is under review, your options become far more limited. The couples who succeed under this system are the ones who understand what USCIS is looking for before the questions start. Now let's talk about exactly what USCIS is focusing on during these marriage green card reviews and why so many couples are being caught off guard. The biggest change is not a new form or a new fee. It is the mindset officers are using when they evaluate marriage-based cases. USCIS is moving away from a checklist approach and toward a pattern-based evaluation. Instead of asking whether you submitted enough documents, officers are asking whether your entire relationship story makes sense over time. One of the first areas officers examine is how the relationship developed. They look closely at timelines. When did you meet? How quickly did the relationship progress? When did you decide to marry? And how does that timeline align with immigration events? If a relationship appears rushed around visa expirations, status changes, or removal proceedings, officers may probe further. This does not mean quick marriages are invalid, but it does mean couples need to clearly explain their story in a way that feels natural and consistent. Living arrangements are another major focus. USCIS expects married couples to live together unless there is a clear, well-documented reason they cannot. Couples who live apart for work, school, family obligations, or cultural reasons must be prepared to explain this in detail. Officers will ask how often you see each other, how you communicate, and what plans you have to reunite. Vague answers or conflicting explanations raise concerns under the new review approach. Finances are being examined more closely than ever. Joint bank accounts, shared expenses, tax filings, insurance policies, and beneficiary designations all tell a story about how a couple functions. USCIS is not looking for wealth, but for integration. Couples who keep everything completely separate without a clear reason may be questioned about whether they are truly operating as a household. At the same time, simply opening a joint account shortly before filing is no longer enough. Officers are looking for patterns of use, not just the existence of an account. Communication and daily life details have also become more important. During interviews, officers may ask about routines, habits, and small details that reveal whether a couple actually shares a life. Questions about who wakes up first, who cooks, what side of the bed each spouse sleeps on, or how weekends are spent are designed to test familiarity. Under the new standards, these questions are being used more frequently, especially in cases where other aspects raise questions. Another area of increased scrutiny is prior immigration history. USCIS compares information across past applications, visas, and records. If something in a marriage green card case conflicts with information provided years earlier, officers may ask why. Sometimes the discrepancy is innocent, such as a misunderstanding or outdated information. Other times it reflects a change in circumstances. Either way, couples need to be prepared to explain differences clearly and honestly. Social media and online presence are also playing a larger role. While not every case involves social media review, public posts that contradict the narrative presented in an application can be damaging. For example, portraying a single lifestyle online while claiming a shared married life in an application raises questions. Officers are trained to notice these inconsistencies when they appear. Cultural differences can complicate interviews under stricter standards. Couples from different backgrounds may express affection, manage finances, or involve family in different ways. Without context, these differences can be misunderstood. This is why clear explanations and supporting evidence matter more now. Officers are not expected to guess or assume. They rely on what is presented to them. The removal of conditions process has also become more demanding. USCIS treats this stage as a second chance to verify the legitimacy of the marriage. Evidence must show not only that the marriage was real at the beginning, but that it has continued in good faith. Periods of separation, hardship, or change are not automatically disqualifying, but they must be explained and supported with evidence. What surprises many couples is that even small inconsistencies can trigger larger reviews. Different addresses listed on forms, mismatched dates, or unclear explanations can slow a case down. Under the new approach, officers are encouraged to follow up rather than overlook these issues. This can lead to additional requests for evidence or extended interviews. It is also important to understand that these reviews are not personal. Officers are following guidance designed to reduce fraud and ensure program integrity. However, the impact on genuine couples can still be stressful. Knowing what officers are looking for allows couples to prepare rather than react. One of the biggest mistakes couples make is assuming that love alone is enough. While a genuine relationship is the foundation, USCIS decisions are based on evidence and consistency. Emotion does not replace documentation. The couples who do well under the new rules are those who can clearly show how their lives are intertwined and explain any unusual circumstances calmly and coherently. Another common mistake is overconfidence. Some couples believe that because their marriage is real, they do not need to prepare. Under the current review standards, preparation is essential. Reviewing your application together, understanding your own timeline, and being ready to explain your situation makes a real difference. The good news is that many couples are still being approved, even under increased scrutiny. The system is not designed to deny real marriages. It is designed to demand clarity. Couples who understand this and approach the process thoughtfully are far more likely to succeed. In the final section, we will focus on what you should be doing right now if you have a marriage green card case pending or planned, and how to protect yourself from avoidable mistakes under these new review standards. Now let's focus on what you should be doing right now if you have a marriage green card case pending, approved conditionally, or planned for the near future. Under the current review standards, success depends far less on luck and far more on preparation, consistency, and awareness. The couples who struggle are usually not the ones with fake marriages. They are the ones who underestimated how closely USCIS would look. The first step is to review your entire filing as a couple. Do not rely on memory or assumptions. Sit down together and go through every form that was submitted. Pay attention to dates, addresses, employment history, and prior immigration information. Make sure both of you understand what was written and why. When officers ask questions, they are often checking whether your answers align with what is already on record. Familiarity with your own case reduces stress and prevents accidental contradictions. Next, evaluate your evidence honestly. Ask whether your documents clearly show a shared life, not just shared paperwork. USCIS is looking for depth, not volume. A stack of documents that all came from the same short period may be less convincing than fewer documents that span time and show ongoing integration. Evidence such as joint leases, consistent financial activity, shared insurance, photographs across different stages of the relationship, and correspondence addressed to both spouses at the same address carries weight when it tells a coherent story. If there are gaps or unusual circumstances, address them proactively. Periods of living apart, changes in employment, financial arrangements that are not traditional, or cultural practices that differ from expectations are not automatic problems. The issue arises when they are unexplained. Written statements, affidavits, and supporting documents that explain context can prevent officers from filling in the gaps with suspicion. For conditional green card holders preparing to remove conditions, now is the time to start gathering evidence, not weeks before filing. USCIS expects to see continuity. If you wait until the last moment, your evidence may look rushed or incomplete. Building a record over time strengthens credibility and reduces anxiety when it is time to file. Interview preparation is another critical area. Even genuine couples can struggle under pressure. Practice answering questions together, not to memorize scripts, but to understand your shared story. Focus on clarity rather than perfection. If you do not remember something exactly, it is better to say so than to guess. Honest uncertainty is less damaging than confident inconsistency. It is also important to manage expectations. Stricter review does not mean automatic denial. Many cases are still approved without issue. However, it does mean that silence or delays may occur while officers take a closer look. Understanding this helps reduce panic when timelines vary. Patience combined with preparedness is the best approach. Communication from USCIS must be taken seriously. Open all mail promptly, check online accounts regularly, and respond to notices within deadlines. Missing a request for evidence or interview notice can cause serious setbacks, regardless of how strong the marriage is. Faster processing in some areas also means shorter windows to respond. If your case has complicating factors, such as prior visa overstays, previous marriages, criminal history, or long separations, consulting an experienced immigration attorney can be helpful. This is not an admission of weakness. It is a strategic decision to understand risks and options before problems arise. Addressing concerns early is far easier than fixing them after a denial. Another area to be mindful of is consistency across systems. Tax filings, addresses, employment records, and even public information should align with what is claimed in your application. You do not need to live a perfect life, but you do need to live an explainable one. When everything points in the same direction, cases move more smoothly. Avoid last-minute changes unless necessary. Sudden address changes, rushed document updates, or incomplete filings increase scrutiny. Planning ahead reduces the need for reactive decisions that can complicate a case. It is also important to protect your mindset. Increased scrutiny can feel personal, but it is procedural. Officers are doing their job under new guidance. Staying calm, respectful, and organized helps interactions go more smoothly. Emotional reactions, defensiveness, or frustration do not improve outcomes. For couples early in the process, understanding these standards now is a major advantage. You can build your case intentionally instead of retroactively. Thoughtful planning creates confidence and reduces stress throughout the process. The most important takeaway is this: marriage green cards are under review in a way that demands clarity, consistency, and preparation. USCIS is not changing the definition of a real marriage, but it is changing how that reality must be demonstrated. Couples who adapt to this reality are still succeeding every day. If you take the time to understand what USCIS is looking for, prepare your evidence carefully, communicate clearly, and respond promptly, you put yourself in the strongest possible position. Immigration processes evolve, but informed couples who plan ahead remain resilient. Awareness is protection. Preparation is power. And under these new review standards, those two things make all the difference.